The marketplace was silent, filled with broken stalls and shattered glass, as if life had been sucked away long ago. Daniel walked slowly, boots crunching over the dust and rubble. The war had ended, but its marks were everywhere. Burned walls, abandoned shops, the faint smell of smoke still in the air. He had come here looking for scrap, maybe something useful to take back, maybe food. But instead, his eyes fell on something he could not ignore. At the far end of the ruined market, half hidden behind a broken pillar, was a figure. She was tall, her skin pale but glowing faintly under the faint light that leaked from the torn roof. Chains bound her wrists and ankles, old iron mixed with alien steel. Her head was lowered, dark hair falling over her face. But when Daniel's footsteps came closer, she lifted her head. That was the moment he saw her eyes. They were not human eyes. Too bright, too deep, filled with something that made his chest tighten. They were begging him, speaking words even before her mouth moved. For a long second, Daniel froze. He had seen aliens before, fought them, even killed some in the war, but never like this. This one wasn't attacking, wasn't mocking humans like the soldiers he remembered. She looked broken. But then, as he began to turn away, thinking it wasn't his problem, her voice reached him. It was soft, cracked, but each word carried weight. "Don't leave me," she whispered, her chains clinking as she shifted. "I can give you what no Earth woman ever would. Just let me stay." The words cut through the silence like a blade. Daniel turned back slowly, unsure if he had heard her right. His heart beat faster. Who was she to say something like that? He should have walked away. The war had taught him not to trust, not to pity, but her eyes held him in place, glowing faintly like stars trapped in a cage. Around them, a few shadows moved. Other aliens were watching, their faces half hidden, their whispers carried by the wind. Daniel could feel the tension in the air. He was human, an outsider here. If he touched her, if he freed her, he would be marked. Yet when he looked back at her, she did not beg with words again. She only stared, those eyes shining with fear and hope together. Daniel stepped closer, his hand brushing against the cold chains. They were rough, biting into her skin, leaving bruises that looked days old. She flinched slightly, but did not pull away. "Why are you here?" he asked in a low voice, though he wasn't sure why he even cared. Her lips trembled. "Because they fear me, because they hate me, because I am not like them. But you?" She swallowed hard, her eyes never leaving his. "You can save me." Daniel shook his head. "I don't save anyone. I barely save myself." His voice was harsh, but inside, doubt twisted like a knife. He should leave. He should not be dragged into this. Yet when she leaned forward, the chains rattling, her breath uneven, he could not step back. "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "I have nothing. Nowhere to go. If you leave me here, they will kill me. Please, let me stay with you." Her desperation struck him harder than the words themselves. She was not lying. He could feel it in her tone, in her trembling hands, in the way her eyes refused to let him go. He had seen soldiers beg for mercy before, but this was different. This was not just fear of death. It was fear of being erased, forgotten. Daniel clenched his fists. He remembered his unit, the men and women who had fought beside him, most of them now gone. He remembered the alien soldiers who had laughed as they burned villages. And now, standing in front of him, chained and alone, was one of their kind. Yet she begged him like she was human, like she felt the same pain. He looked at the crowd again. Their whispers had grown louder, their eyes sharp with suspicion. Some pointed, some smirked, but none stepped forward. They wanted him to act, to see if he was foolish enough to take her side. He understood the danger, but the weight of her eyes kept pulling him back. Her voice dropped lower, almost breaking. "If you walk away, I will die here. If you take me, I will give you more than any Earth woman could. I swear it." Her words echoed in his mind, strange and heavy, but full of promise. Daniel's chest tightened as silence stretched. He did not know what she meant. He did not know if it was a trick, if she had some hidden plan. But in that moment, with her chains clinking softly and her eyes glowing in the dark, he felt something stronger than logic. Something that told him if he left now, it would haunt him forever. He reached out. The chains were cold, biting against his hand as he gripped them. Her breath caught, and her lips parted slightly, as if she could not believe he would even try. For a second, their eyes locked again, and Daniel felt as if he was falling into them, into a depth he had never known. Behind him, the whispers turned into sharp gasps. The crowd had seen. The danger had already begun. But Daniel no longer cared. For reasons he could not explain, he could not walk away from her. Her eyes softened, shining with relief, and for the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. "Thank you," she whispered, as if the words themselves were too fragile to exist. Daniel tightened his grip on the chains, his jaw set. He did not know what he had just stepped into. He did not know what she truly was or what her promise meant. But he knew one thing for certain. The moment he heard her voice, the moment he saw her eyes, his life had changed. The market was silent again, but now it was a silence full of danger, of watching eyes, of coming storms. And standing there with her, Daniel felt the weight of a choice that could not be undone. Daniel's hand was still on the cold chains when he felt the eyes of the crowd burning into his back. Their whispers grew louder, sharper, like knives in the air. He knew what this meant. Freeing her was not just about breaking metal. It was about declaring a side. And in this place, the wrong choice could cost him his life. Yet her eyes did not let him go. They held him like a grip tighter than iron. He pulled harder, and the chain lock clicked weakly, already worn out from age. With one last tug, the shackle snapped. The sound echoed through the ruined market like thunder. A gasp rose from the bystanders, a mix of shock and fear. The woman staggered forward, her wrists still bruised and raw, but her body suddenly free. She caught herself on Daniel's arm, trembling, her face close enough that he could feel her uneven breath. "You saved me," she whispered, but the words sounded more like a warning than thanks. "Don't thank me yet," Daniel muttered. He knew eyes were watching, and once the news spread, he would be hunted. He had just tied himself to a stranger, an alien, and maybe a danger bigger than he could imagine. She straightened slowly, brushing her tangled hair back. For the first time, he saw her clearly. Her skin shimmered faintly, not like human skin, but as if light itself moved beneath it. Her lips were pale, her cheeks hollow, yet her posture held a strange pride. "My name is Serenia," she said softly. "Once I was of the high caste, now I am nothing." Daniel frowned. High caste. He had heard the term during the war. Nobles, leaders, untouchables. They were the ones who ordered death while others obeyed. If she was one of them, why was she here in chains? As if reading his doubt, Serenia lowered her voice, almost trembling. "They cast me out. They call me cursed. I hold something they fear. That is why they left me here to die. And that is why they will come for me again now that you have touched me." Her words twisted something inside Daniel. He wanted to demand answers. What curse? What power? But the sound of footsteps behind them made his blood run cold. A group of aliens had stepped forward from the shadows, tall, armored, their glowing eyes sharp with hate. They did not attack, not yet, but their stares made clear what they thought of his choice. Daniel tightened his jaw. He had been a soldier long enough to recognize a warning. He leaned closer to Serenia. "If I walk away now, they let me live. If I take you, they'll come after both of us." Her fingers brushed his sleeve lightly, trembling. "I know, and yet I ask you, don't leave me." Her voice broke on the last words. Daniel should have cursed, should have pushed her away and left. But something in her tone, in the rawness of it, hit deeper than he wanted to admit. He remembered the war, the villages burning, the people screaming for help, and how many times he had walked away because he could not save them all. Was this just another moment where he would walk? Or would he carry the weight of it forever if he left her here? The armored aliens began to move closer, slowly, like predators testing prey. Daniel gritted his teeth and grabbed Serenia's wrist. "Move," he whispered, pulling her with him. Her eyes widened, glowing brighter with something between fear and gratitude. Together, they pushed through the market, ignoring the sharp voices behind them. The broken stalls became a maze, and Daniel's soldier instincts kept him quick, turning down narrow paths, pushing fallen crates aside. Serenia kept close, almost stumbling, but she did not let go of his arm. "You don't even know me," Daniel muttered as they ran. "Why would I risk this?" She glanced at him, her face pale, her eyes dark with memory. "Because you are human," she whispered. "And humans, they are different. I saw it in the war. I saw the way you fight, the way you protect. My people do not understand it. They only destroy. But I know what you are. That is why I begged you." Her words echoed in his chest, strange and heavy. He wanted to deny it, to say humans were no saviors, only survivors. But there was no time. The voices of the hunters grew louder behind them, boots slamming against stone. They ducked into an alley, narrow and dark. Daniel pressed her against the wall and peeked out. The hunters marched past, scanning with sharp devices, their lights cutting across the ruins. He kept his breath steady, waiting until they passed. Serenia stayed close, so close he could hear her heartbeat racing against his chest. When silence returned, she spoke again, her voice shaking. I told you before, I can give you what no Earth woman could, not just words. My blood, my power. It is different. That is why they fear me. That is why they chained me. If you let me stay, I can give it to you. Daniel turned his eyes on her sharply. What does that mean? What exactly are you? Serenia looked away, her fingers curling against the broken wall. It means once you take me with you, there is no turning back. You will be hunted as I am hunted, but it also means you will never be the same. I cannot explain now. You will see in time. Her mystery cut into him, filling him with questions, but the sound of distant shouts reminded him they were not safe. He grabbed her hand again, pulling her deeper into the ruins. Every step felt heavier. He was dragging himself into something dangerous, something far bigger than one choice. Yet when she stumbled and almost fell, clutching his sleeve tightly, her eyes lifted to his once more. They were glowing faintly in the dark, full of both terror and hope. And in that moment, Daniel realized why he hadn't walked away. It wasn't just her promise. It wasn't just pity. It was the truth he didn't want to admit. He couldn't stand to see those eyes close forever. Behind them, the hunters' voices echoed louder, their weapons ready. Ahead of them lay only shadows and uncertainty. But Daniel's grip on her wrist tightened, steady and sure. He didn't know where this road would lead, but he knew one thing with certainty. He had chosen her, and there was no turning back. The ruins grew darker as Daniel and Serenia moved further away from the market. The hunters' voices faded, but the fear in her eyes stayed the same. She held his arm tightly, as if letting go would mean death. Daniel's mind was full of questions, but his throat felt dry. He had seen many strange things in the war, but nothing like this woman, nothing like the words she had whispered. Finally, when the streets grew silent, Daniel stopped in the shadow of a collapsed building. He turned sharply to her. Now, he said, his voice low but firm, you're going to tell me the truth. What are you? Why do they fear you? Serenia's lips trembled. She leaned against the cracked wall, her body weak but her eyes still glowing faintly. For a long moment, she said nothing, as if she was afraid to speak. Then she whispered, because I carry something inside me, something no one else can control. My people call it a curse, but I know it as a gift. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Gift? You mean what you promised me back there? That you can give something no Earth woman ever would? Her gaze met his, and he felt again that strange pull, as if her eyes carried a weight beyond sight. Yes, she said softly. Humans fight with muscle, with weapons, with fire. But I can give you more than that. My kind can bond. We can share life, energy, emotions, even strength itself. I can heal wounds. I can push your body beyond its limits. I can open your mind to knowledge your world has never dreamed of. That is what I meant. Daniel's heart skipped. The idea sounded impossible, almost insane. But something in her tone told him she believed every word. He shook his head. You expect me to believe you can just make me stronger? Heal me? Share your life? Her lips curled into a faint, sad smile. I do not expect you to believe. I expect you to see. That is why I begged you not to leave. If you let me stay, I will show you. But once you accept it, there is no return. Once the bond is made, our lives are tied. If you die, I die. If I fall, you fall. Do you understand now why they chained me? Why they fear me? Her words struck him harder than he wanted. He stared at her, trying to find a lie, some trick in her voice, but all he saw was raw truth. So you're saying, he muttered slowly, that if I agree, if I let you use this power on me, we're both stuck, forever. Serenia nodded. Her hands shook slightly, and her voice lowered to a whisper. Yes, forever. Daniel paced a few steps away, his boots crunching on broken stone. He wanted to laugh, to push the thought away, but his memories returned instead. He remembered the battlefields, the nights filled with screams, the times he had nearly died. If what she said was true, if she could heal, if she could give him strength, it was beyond anything Earth had ever known. But he also remembered betrayal, remembered how many times trust had cost lives. He turned back to her sharply. Why me? You don't even know me. Why would you risk bonding yourself to a stranger, a human? Her answer came without hesitation. Because you touched the chains. Daniel frowned. What? You didn't walk away, Serenia said, her voice shaking but firm. Others stared. Others whispered, but only you broke the chains. Do you know what that means to me? My people left me here to rot. To them, I am less than dirt. But you, a human, freed me when you had every reason to walk away. That is why it must be you. Her words left Daniel silent. He had not thought of it that way. To him, it had been a choice he almost regretted already. But to her, it was everything. He looked at her again, and for the first time, he noticed the pain hidden under her eyes. Not just fear, but years of rejection, loneliness, despair. A distant sound broke the silence. The hunters again, their calls echoing faintly through the streets. Serenia stiffened, her body pressing closer to him in instinctive fear. They are coming, she whispered. They will not stop. They will never stop until I am gone. If you let me stay, I can give you what you need to fight them. But if you send me away, her voice cracked, and she looked down. I will not live until dawn. Daniel felt his chest tighten. The decision weighed heavy on him. Take her, and he would be hunted with her. Leave her, and she would die. His instincts screamed at him to run, but his heart refused to let her eyes fade from life. He stepped closer, his voice sharp. If this bond is real, if you really can do what you claim, then why did your own people throw you away? Why didn't they use your power? Her hands clenched against her chest. Because they fear what they cannot control. My power does not obey their commands. It chooses, and it chose you. Her words hung in the air, heavier than stone. Daniel stared at her, his throat dry. Chose him? He wanted to argue, wanted to deny it, but deep down he knew something had happened the moment he broke her chains. Something had shifted between them. The hunter's footsteps grew louder, closer. Time was running out. Serenia's eyes met his one last time, glowing brighter in the shadows. Please, she begged softly. Let me stay. Let me give you what no Earth woman ever could. You don't have to believe me now. Just don't send me away. Daniel's pulse hammered in his ears. He could almost feel the weight of fate pressing down on him, forcing him to choose. And as he looked at her trembling figure, her glowing eyes locked on his, he realized that choice was already made. He could not walk away. Not now. Not ever. The night had grown colder, the ruins sharp with silence, but Daniel knew they were not alone. The sound of boots striking stone echoed faintly through the empty streets. The hunters were close. He could feel it in his bones, the same way he once felt enemy patrols back during the war. Serenia stayed close beside him, her breath uneven, her eyes darting at every shadow. Her hand brushed against his arm, not in trust but in fear, as if touching him was the only anchor she had left. Daniel led her through broken alleys and collapsed walls, moving quickly but carefully. He had no weapon but the old knife strapped to his boot. Against armored hunters, it would be nothing. Still, his soldier's mind worked. He mapped every corner, every escape path, but the ruins felt like a cage, every street turning back to the same dead ends. Serenia whispered, They know these streets. They will trap us here. Daniel glanced at her, his jaw set. Then guide me. If you know a way out, say it now. Serenia hesitated, her lips trembling. I know of tunnels beneath the ruins, but they are dangerous. My people used them long ago. They may not be safe now. Safer than standing here, Daniel muttered, pulling her toward the nearest collapsed stairway. The stones cracked under their steps as they climbed down. Dust rose in the air, filling his lungs with the taste of ash. The tunnel below was narrow and dark, lined with broken pillars and faint carvings that glowed faintly when Serenia passed her hand over them. The light from the walls shimmered against her skin, making her look even more alien, more unearthly. Daniel felt a chill, wondering again what she really was. Behind them, the hunters' shouts grew louder. The sound of metal against stone rang out, weapons being drawn. Serenia's eyes widened. They have found the trail. Daniel grabbed her wrist. Keep moving. They ran deeper into the tunnels, their footsteps echoing. But the further they went, the more Daniel noticed something strange. Serenia did not run blindly. She turned corners with purpose, guided him down the right path before danger even appeared. When he stopped to ask how, she whispered, I know their ways. I was raised with them. I know how they think. The words struck him like a stone. He narrowed his eyes. You've led them before, haven't you? She froze, her breath catching. Yes, she admitted softly, her voice full of shame. Before they chained me, I was one of them. I commanded. I hunted. I destroyed. Her eyes lowered, glowing dimly in the shadows. That is why I know the path. That is why they will not stop until I am gone. I betrayed their pride when I refused to kill as they ordered. I am their shame. Daniel's hand clenched into a fist. Rage burned inside him at the thought that she had once stood with those who murdered his people. His mind screamed at him to let her go, to walk away, to leave her for them to finish. But when she lifted her eyes again, there was no pride in them, only guilt and desperation. I am not what I was, she whispered. If you believe nothing else, believe that. The voices of the hunters echoed closer, cutting short the argument. Daniel cursed under his breath. There was no time. He pulled her forward again, though his mind was heavy with doubt. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast chamber, lit by shafts of moonlight breaking through cracks above. The air was cold and still, but not empty. Across the chamber, shadows moved, hunters entering from another passage. They had been waiting. Serenya's grip on his arm tightened painfully. They are here. Daniel scanned quickly. Broken statues lined the walls, their faces worn away. Rubble scattered the ground, but no clear exit. Trapped. The hunters spread out, their glowing eyes fixing on him and Serenya. One of them raised a weapon, a spear of crackling energy, and spoke in a harsh, alien tongue. Serenya flinched. They say if you leave now, they will spare you. But if you stand with me, you will die with me. Daniel stared at them, then back at her. For a heartbeat, he considered it. Walking away meant safety. Walking away meant living another day. But then his eyes met hers again. Even in the cold light, her gaze begged him. Not with pride, not with command, but with raw fear and hope. He stepped forward, placing himself between her and the hunters. Tell them, he said through clenched teeth. If they want you, they'll have to go through me. Serenya's lips parted in shock. The hunters roared with laughter, a sound both cruel and mocking. To them, he was nothing, a fragile human standing against their might. Yet they tightened their grip on their weapons, ready to strike. Daniel's knife felt small and useless in his hand. His muscles tensed, ready for a fight he knew he couldn't win. But beside him, Serenya whispered, If you trust me, I can help you. He glanced at her quickly. How? Her glowing eyes locked on his, steady despite her trembling body. Let me share my power. Let me bond with you. You will survive this. We will survive this. But you must let me in. You must let me stay. The moment hung heavy. Hunters closed in, their steps shaking the ground. Daniel's heart pounded, torn between fear and choice. Every instinct told him to keep his soul his own, to never trust what he didn't understand. But when he looked at her, at the tears in her glowing eyes and the raw plea in her voice, he knew he could not refuse. He gripped her hand tightly, and in that instant something pulsed through him, a rush like fire and lightning filling his veins. His body burned, his breath caught taut, his vision blurred, but his knife no longer felt small. His muscles felt alive, stronger than ever. Serenya's voice echoed in his mind, soft but firm. Now we are one. The hunters froze for a moment, sensing the change. The human they mocked was no longer the same. And as Daniel stood taller, his eyes burning faintly with her glow, the chamber filled with a new kind of silence. The chase was over. The fight was about to begin. The glow in Daniel's veins had not faded when they found shelter inside an old human outpost, half buried under the ruins of stone and steel. The place smelled of rust, burned wires, and old blood. The walls were cracked, the floor broken, but it was silent. For the first time since freeing Serenya, there were no footsteps chasing them, no hunters' voices echoing behind. Daniel closed the heavy metal door and leaned against it, his breath sharp and heavy. Serenya stood only a few steps away, her body shaking, her glowing eyes dimmed from exhaustion. He pressed his hand against his chest. The strange fire she had given him was still there. His body felt alive, stronger than ever, yet it also scared him. His heart beat faster than normal, and his skin burned like it was carrying sparks. He looked at her sharply. What did you do to me? Serenya lowered her head. I shared only a fraction, enough to let you stand against them. But you are not bonded yet. Not fully. Daniel frowned. Then what was it back there? My veins were on fire. My body, it felt like it wasn't even mine anymore. Her voice shook. That was only a taste. If you let me bond with you completely, You will see what I meant. You will never be the same. Daniel stepped closer, his jaw tight. And if I don't? Her eyes lifted to his. Then when the hunters find us, you will die. And I will die with you. The power I gave you now will fade. It is temporary. Her words sat heavy between them. Daniel looked around the outpost. Old bullet casings littered the floor, and on one wall, scratched letters still spelled the words "We held, we bled, we fell." He had fought in places like this, bled with men and women who had never come back. The silence of the dead pressed down on him now. Serenia moved closer. Her chains, though broken, still hung loosely from her wrists, clinking softly. She kneeled in front of him, her voice soft, almost trembling. You are hurt. I can see it. The hunters cut you. Let me heal you. Let me prove I can be what I said. Daniel looked down. His side throbbed with pain he had ignored during the chase. He pulled back his shirt. A deep gash stretched across his ribs, dark blood crusting at the edges. The sight made his stomach tighten. He hadn't even felt how bad it was, not with the fire in his veins distracting him. Without help, infection or blood loss would finish him before the hunters even returned. Her hands hovered above the wound, shaking. Let me. Daniel's eyes narrowed. If I let you do this, it's not just healing, is it? It means letting you inside. It means the bond starts. Her lips parted, but she didn't deny it. Yes, to heal fully, I must touch deeper than flesh. I will see you, your fears, your pain, your memories, and you will see me. The thought hit him harder than the wound itself. He had kept his past locked away, faces of friends dead on battlefields, the screams of civilians he couldn't save, the orders he wished he had never obeyed. If she saw all that, if she stepped into his mind, there would be no hiding, no walls left. That's not something I can give to anyone, he said bitterly. Serenia's voice cracked. I am not anyone. I am already tied to you. Don't you feel it? When you broke my chains, the choice was made. You can run from me, but inside, I will stay. The only difference now is if you will let me share your pain or leave you to bleed alone. Her eyes glowed faintly in the shadows, not sharp, not demanding, pleading. Daniel's breath grew heavy. He wanted to shout, to push her away, but his strength faltered. The wound burned, his legs weakened. He stumbled, catching himself against the wall. Serenia gasped and rushed forward, catching his arm. Her touch was warm, too warm, as if life itself flowed through her skin. Daniel clenched his teeth, looking at her trembling face so close to his. And if I let you in, if I let you heal me, there's no going back. Her whisper was steady, though tears welled in her eyes. No going back, but no more loneliness either. For a long second, silence filled the room, broken only by the drip of water leaking from a pipe. Daniel felt trapped between the memory of every time trust had cost him before and the raw, desperate need in her eyes now. Finally, with a low growl of frustration, he grabbed her wrist and pressed her hand against his wound. Do it, before I change my mind. Serenia's eyes widened, then softened. She pressed both hands against his side, her forehead lowering until it touched his shoulder. Her lips moved in words he didn't know, a chant soft and alien. And then it came, the fire again, but different this time. Not wild, not painful, warm, deep. It spread from her palms into his body, filling every broken vein, every torn muscle. His vision blurred, but through it he saw flashes, not of his memories, but of hers. He saw her as a child, standing among nobles in shining halls, her eyes glowing brighter than anyone else's. He saw the moment soldiers dragged her away in chains, her screams silenced by their hate. He saw her years of loneliness, begging for mercy no one gave, and finally the moment she looked up and saw him in the market. Daniel's breath caught. He tried to pull back, but the bond did not let him. His own memories spilled forward. His unit dying one by one, his commander's final order to retreat, the face of a little girl in a burning village he couldn't save. Serenia flinched as she saw it, tears spilling from her eyes. So much pain, she whispered. You carry it like chains heavier than mine. And then the warmth surged again, brighter, filling the wound. The pain vanished, replaced by a strange peace he had not felt in years. He looked down. The gash was gone. Only smooth skin remained, faintly glowing before fading back to normal. Serenia collapsed forward, her forehead pressing against his chest. Her body shook with exhaustion, but her lips curved into a weak smile. Now you know, she whispered. This is what I can give you. Not lies, not tricks. Life. Daniel's hands hovered above her shoulders, unsure whether to push her away or hold her closer. His chest was tight, his mind torn. But one thing was certain, the bond had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. Daniel sat in the silence of the outpost, his hand pressed against the skin where the wound had been. There was no scar, no pain. Only a strange warmth lingered, like a faint glow hidden beneath his flesh. His heart beat steady, but he felt different. Stronger, sharper, more alive than he ever remembered. Every sound in the ruined building seemed louder, every shadow clearer. It was as if his body no longer belonged to him alone. Serenia sat across from him, leaning weakly against the wall. Her chains clinked softly when she shifted, her eyes dim from exhaustion. The healing had taken much from her. Sweat glistened on her forehead, and her hands trembled as she folded them in her lap. She looked fragile now, smaller than when he first saw her glowing in the chains. Yet when she raised her eyes to him, they still carried that strange light. "You feel it, don't you?" she whispered, her voice rough but certain. Daniel frowned. "Feel what?" "The change," she said, her lips trembling. "The bond beginning, the strength flowing in you. I told you. No Earth woman could ever give this. Now you know I spoke truth." Daniel looked away, his jaw tight. He hated admitting it, but she was right. He did feel it. The fatigue of battle, the ache of running, even the old scars in his body seemed lighter now. He should have been terrified, but instead he felt a dangerous temptation. A part of him wanted to test this strength, to see what else she could give. Another part screamed that it was wrong, that letting her deeper would mean losing himself. He turned back to her sharply. "Why me? Out of everyone you could have chosen, why tie yourself to a human soldier? You knew the risk. You knew your people would come after you harder." Serenia lowered her head, her hair falling over her face. "Because I saw what you carry. I felt it the moment you touched my chains. Your pain is heavy, Daniel. Heavier than mine, though I was born cursed. You walk with ghosts. You hide behind strength, but inside, you are as lost as I am. That is why I chose you. Not because you are human, but because you understand what it is to be broken." Her words struck him harder than any blade. For a moment, the room felt colder. He wanted to deny it, but her voice left no space for lies. She had seen him, too deeply, too clearly. Before he could answer, a sound rattled outside. The hunters. Their boots crushed gravel, their voices echoing through the ruins. Daniel stiffened, his hand flying to the knife at his belt. Serenia's eyes widened with fear. "They found us." Daniel moved to the window, peeking through a crack. Shadows shifted outside, weapons glowing faintly in the dark. They were searching, careful, slow, as if they knew their prey was cornered. His grip on the knife tightened, but the weapon felt small in his hand compared to the power burning in his veins. He turned back to Serenia. She was pale, her energy drained. She could not fight like this. If they stayed, they would be slaughtered. If they ran, she might collapse. For the first time since the war, Daniel felt the heavy weight of choice pressing down again. Serenia's trembling voice broke the silence. "If you want to live, you must let me finish it. The bond. Only then will you have the strength to stand against them." Daniel's breath caught. "You mean more of what you did before? More fire in my blood?" She shook her head slowly. "No. What I gave you before was only the beginning. A spark. If we complete it now, you will not just borrow my strength. You will carry it as your own. You will be faster, stronger, harder to kill. But," her voice trailed off. "But what?" Daniel pressed. Her glowing eyes lifted to his, full of fear and longing. "You will see all of me, and I will see all of you. No secrets, no walls. We will be one. If you hate what you find in me, it will be too late. If I cannot carry what I find in you, it will destroy us both." The words twisted deep inside him. The thought of someone seeing every scar, every sin, every regret, it terrified him more than the hunters outside. He had buried those memories so deep, locked them away so tightly, that even he rarely let himself remember. To open them now, to let her in, felt like stepping naked into fire. But then the sound of weapons charging outside shook the walls. The hunters were close, their voices growing sharper. Daniel cursed under his breath, pacing the floor. He had two choices: trust her completely or die here with nothing. Serenia knelt before him, her chains dragging against the floor. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Daniel, please. I do not want to die here. Not after finding you. Let me stay. Let me give you what I am. All of me." Her eyes glowed brighter, tears shimmering in them. They begged him more than her words ever could. For a long heartbeat, he stared at her, torn between fear and need. Then, with a growl of defiance, he grabbed her hands and pulled her close. Do it, whatever it takes. Finish it. Her lips parted in shock, then curved into the faintest, trembling smile. She placed her hands against his chest, closing her eyes. Her forehead pressed against his, and suddenly, the fire roared back into him. It was not just warmth this time, it was everything. Memories crashed into him. Her laughter as a child, her tears when her people betrayed her, the endless years of loneliness. At the same time, his memories poured into her, battlefields littered with corpses, his comrades' dying screams, the little girl he had failed to save. He wanted to pull away, but the bond held him, forcing them both to share the weight. Serenia cried out softly, but did not let go. I see you, she whispered, her voice shaking, and I do not turn away. Daniel's chest heaved, tears burning his eyes, though he had not wept in years. And I see you, he whispered back, and I will not leave. The fire settled, and when it faded, something new remained. Daniel's body no longer felt like his alone. His strength was doubled, his senses sharpened. He could feel Serenia's heartbeat inside his chest, and she could feel his inside hers. They were not two anymore. They were one. Outside, the hunters prepared to break down the door. Daniel rose slowly, his knife still in his hand, but it no longer felt small. The glow in his eyes matched hers now. He looked at the door, then at Serenia. She stood beside him, her chains dragging but her face steady. For the first time, Daniel felt no fear. The bond was complete. Whatever came through that door, they would face it together. The metal door shook under the force of the hunters' weapons. Each strike echoed through the old outpost like thunder, dust falling from the ceiling, walls vibrating as if the building itself feared what was coming. Daniel stood in front of the door, his shoulders squared, the knife steady in his grip. His breath came slow and calm, but inside, a storm raged. He could feel Serenia's heartbeat within his chest, matching his own, strong and fast. It was no longer just his fight. Their bond was real now, and it burned like fire through his blood. Serenia stood beside him, chains dragging softly on the floor. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever, the same glow now burning faintly in Daniel's eyes. She looked fragile, weak from all she had given, yet her voice carried a strange certainty. They will not expect what you have become, she whispered. But you must trust me, Daniel. Trust us. The door cracked, sparks flying from its hinges. The hunters roared on the other side, their voices harsh, promising death. Daniel clenched his jaw and tightened his grip on the knife. He should have been terrified. A human soldier with nothing but a blade should never stand against armored aliens armed with energy weapons. But his fear had burned away. All that remained was the fire of the bond and the weight of Serenia's eyes, begging him not to let go. The door burst open. Hunters stormed inside, their armor glowing, their weapons humming with deadly power. The first one raised a spear, ready to strike. Daniel moved before he even thought. His body blurred forward, faster than any human could move. His knife slashed across the alien's chest plate, sparks flying as the creature staggered back. Daniel spun, his reflexes sharp, his strength doubled. Another hunter swung a blade, but Daniel caught the strike with his bare hand, twisting until the weapon snapped. The alien's eyes widened in shock. This was not the fragile human they expected. Serenia lifted her hand weakly, her chains glowing as energy pulsed through them. The walls of the outpost trembled, stones shifting, sending rubble crashing down on two hunters. They screamed, crushed under the weight. But the effort made her stumble. Daniel felt her pain inside him, as if it were his own, a burning in his chest. He gritted his teeth and fought harder, cutting through another attacker before it could reach her. The hunters growled, circling him now, wary. They had thought it would be an easy kill, but the human stood in their way like a beast unleashed. One hissed in their language, pointing at Serenia, and Daniel felt her hand clutch his arm tightly. They want me alive? She whispered. They only want dead. Daniel's rage flared hotter. Then let's make them regret coming here. The fight turned into chaos. Blades clashed. Energy sparks burned the air. Dust and blood filled the room. Daniel moved like he had never moved before, his knife an extension of his hand, his body fueled by her strength. Each time he faltered, Serenia's fire pushed him back up. Each time she weakened, his will steadied her. Together they stood, neither able to fall without the other. But the hunters were many, and the room felt smaller with every clash. One of them struck Daniel across the chest, the force enough to throw him against the wall. His vision blurred, blood filling his mouth. Pain shot through his ribs, but at the same time, he felt a warmth rush into him. Serenya's energy, flowing again. She cried out softly, collapsing to her knees, giving him what strength she had left. Daniel pushed himself back up, fury burning in his eyes. He launched forward, his knife sinking into the hunter's throat, ending it in one swift strike. The others hesitated, fear flickering in their glowing eyes. They had never seen a human rise again and again, fueled by something beyond flesh. Serenya dragged herself up, leaning against the wall, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Her voice trembled, yet it carried power. "Show them, Daniel. Show them what it means to stand with a human." Her words lit something inside him. Daniel roared and charged, his movements faster, sharper, every strike precise. He cut through their line, forcing them back. The hunters, once so confident, began to retreat, fear spreading through them like fire. Their leader hissed a final command, and the surviving hunters pulled back, vanishing into the night with growls of anger and shame. The outpost fell silent again, broken only by Daniel's heavy breathing. His knife dripped with blood, the floor littered with fallen hunters. He dropped the blade, his chest rising and falling. The fire in his veins dimmed slowly, leaving him trembling but alive. Serenya slid down the wall, her chains rattling softly. Her body was weak, her face pale, but her eyes still glowed faintly. Daniel rushed to her, kneeling at her side. "Don't you dare close your eyes," he muttered, his hand holding her shoulder. She gave a weak smile, her voice soft. "You see now, you feel now. What I promised, it was never a lie. I told you I could give you what no Earth woman ever could." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to scold her for giving too much, for risking her life to save his. But when he looked into her eyes, all he saw was hope, the same hope that had been there since the market, when she begged him not to leave. He pulled her close, his voice low but firm. "I'm not letting you go. Not now, not ever." Tears welled in her glowing eyes, and she whispered the words that had followed them since the beginning. "Just let me stay." Daniel closed his eyes, pressing his forehead against hers. Outside, the night stretched on, the hunters gone but not defeated. More would come. The bond had made them targets, enemies of her people and his alike. The future was uncertain, dangerous, and full of storms. But in that moment, with her heartbeat echoing inside his chest and her trembling body held tightly against him, Daniel no longer cared. He had made his choice. He had given her what she begged for. And together, human and alien, they would face whatever came.